Hello and welcome to Whisky Waffle. My name is Ingrid Anna Jones and today's topic is all about glassware. So I have quite a lot of whisky glassware and some of it's come from distilleries, some has been given to me, some I've bought. Some are called things like the traditional whisky glass, the ultimate whisky glass, the official whisky glass. But they're all different shapes and sizes, so it's quite interesting to see, well, which one do I use and why are they different? So I thought I'd take you through some of my whisky glasses and explain why I would choose them and how I would drink my whisky using them. So yeah, without further ado. So just before I start, if you would like to subscribe, subscribing is totally free. You just log into YouTube and there's a button just below and you can hit that button. Really makes a difference to me. And it just means you can get a notification. If you choose to, you can turn that off as well, so you don't have to be interrupted. But you can at least find my little videos really easily, really quickly. So yeah, hit that subscribe button and join me each week. So moving on to glassware then. So there are a couple. I'm going to start with a couple of quite traditional glasses. So these are the glasses that when someone says a whisky glass, these are probably the two that will come to mind. One or the other might come to mind, or even both. So I'm going to start with what is really quite a traditional whisky glass, this one here. It's a heavy duty crystal tumbler. So these are the kind of whisky glasses you would get if you purchase a set of glasses. So if you're buying wine glasses and champagne flutes as a nice set, often if you then choose some whisky glasses, this is what they'll look like. Variations basically of this kind of thing. Generally straight-sided, quite a big opening and nice and weighty. So these are also the ones that you'll generally see like in film sets and those kind of places. So they have a whisky, which often there's quite a lot of films where programs where they'll pick up a whisky and they'll often have this kind of a glass. And they're very nice. They're nice because they're nice and weighty. Some people really like that. And they're great because if you like to drink your whisky with, say, ice cubes, lots of space, you can get your ice in there nice and easily. So I have a couple of those. I have to say I don't use them very much. My issue with these is that the aroma escapes way too easily. So when it comes to tasting whisky, you have the flavour, so the taste, the palate, but it's not all about that. So if you have a whisky and you just drink it and you don't smell it or savor it or look at it, you're only getting part of an experience, really. So the other kind of fairly traditional whisky glass, which is actually called the official whisky tasting glass, is the Glencairn nosing glass. And that is what one of these is. So it's an official Glencairn whisky glass. And it's called a nosing glass mainly because of the shape. So you can see lovely sort of bulbous bottom, tapering in, and then a narrow rim at the top. And the idea is you can move the whisky around in there, and as the aromas are released, they gather together because obviously they go up and they sort of gather at the top, so there's less space. And you can really nose those aromas. You don't lose them like you would on a bigger, wider opening. They're sort of much closer together, so you can really taste, get a lot of that nose and that smell of your whisky. So that's great. The other nice thing is you can move your whisky quite easily in this. So here's one I prepared earlier. So you can see that it just moves around, but you're not about to spill it. It's got a kind of a natural rim where it seems to stop. Obviously, it depends how vigorous you are, but I would suggest don't be too vigorous. You can also then see the tide mark, you can see the colour nicely, and you can really get an understanding of what is in your glass. And then as you move it around, and if you want to add a bit of water, you might choose to do that, you might not, doesn't matter. The aromas are released and you can really smell them. You can really get those wonderful aromas out of that. So that is your traditional Glencairn nosing glass. There are then variations to that. So for example, such as this one. So this is one I picked up in Orkney when I was up there. This is the Highland Park Distillery. As you can see, very, very similar. Bulbous bottom, tapering, and then the narrow rim. No sort of base to hold on this one. Now, I don't have a problem with that. That's fine, because actually whiskey, if you cool it, quite a lot of the characteristics can be lost if you get it too cold. It really is best if it's drank at kind of room temperature. That gives those flavors full chance to really sort of open up. Now, there are some whiskies out there that are sort of created to be drank chilled, and that's fine obviously for those, but there's not many of them. And for them, it's the aromas and things all come together and the characteristics come together when they are cold. But for most whiskies, actually, it's fine. So just warm it up slightly in your hand, no problem at all. So this one is quite interesting. This is this time we have a stem, as you can see. So this is from the Mackmyra distillery in Sweden. And as you can see, it's got the same kind of shape, the bulbous bottom and the narrowing rim. But this time, if you prefer to hold a stem, if that's what you are more comfortable with, then you can go for something more like this. I quite like it. It's a nice one to drink. It feels a little bit more delicate than the sort of more chunky Glencairn glass, and that will suit some people better than others. So yeah, it's another nice one. It is a little bit smaller, as you can see, slightly smaller, but obviously when you're drinking whiskey, you don't generally drink a huge amount anyway. So again, either would work. The next one I have here is quite interesting. So this is the Copter glass. It's also known as the dock glass. Now with this one, apparently they used to, it got its name the dock glass because it used to be down at the docklands when the ships came in, and the merchants would use these glasses to sample the wine and spirits coming in so that they could really taste it and see what they were like. So yeah, that's the Copter glass, also known as the dock glass. It is actually said to be the traditional whiskey glass. So if you go to whiskey fairs, you could get any of these. So I've seen these ones at whiskey fairs. I've seen the sort of the more delicate ones like this at whiskey fairs too. And obviously the Glencairn ones, they're quite popular at the different whiskey fairs. The next one I have is I really like. So this is fairly new. It came on the market, I think it was last year. This is the Irish whiskey drinking glass. This is called the Tua. And as you can see, it's very similar in shape again. So again, bulbous bottom, narrowing. This time we have this kind of flip thing going on, which is quite interesting. And this is really nice to drink out of. Actually, I've always quite liked a bit of a lip on any drinking vessel that I have. So I often choose this one to use. It is also bigger. That isn't why I choose it, but it is bigger. It's got a slightly flatter bottom, as you can see, and just slightly larger than the Glencairn glass. And the other particular thing is obviously the shape at the bottom. So you can see we've got quite an unusual foot to the glass. And it is sort of, if you can see that, it's sort of traditional here, and you've got this kind of cut out part. It's really nice to hold. You can hold it in different ways, and it sort of feels quite solid. It's quite a nice way of holding it. It fits your finger quite well, and yes, so that's different, very unusual, but nice and comfortable. So I often pick this one because I quite like that. Now this lip thing is something in my other favourite glass that comes across quite a lot, and that's the neat glass. So this is called the neat glass. This was created a few years ago, and as you can see, it has a huge lip and quite a squat design, but you've still got a slightly bulbous bottom. The interesting thing with this is it's designed to sort of allow the aromas to congregate still, but allow the alcoholic aromas to dissipate. So as you're drinking it, the strength, because obviously whiskey, we're talking about 40% and above. And the idea is that those vapors from the sort of the solid hit of the alcohol just sort of dissipate over the side. So you're left with the wonderful aromas of the whiskey. Does it work? Maybe to some extent, possibly. I probably need to do more of a test with this. Definitely need to do more of a test. But it is quite a nice one to drink out of. You do have to get used to it though. because they talk about this sort of waterfall effect into your mouth. And it is true. So you can see with this wide rim, it does kind of flatten out. And as you drink it, it's not like drinking out of a normal receptacle. You do get this sort of slightly different effect. So it's quite fun, actually. I quite enjoy it. And it does still capture those aromas. I'm not sure if it captures them as much as some of the others, but it's still a nice way to drink your whiskey. So moving on from that, I then have some slightly different ones. Now, interestingly, these are all from distilleries. And the first one is this one from Tullibardine. So this is a great Highland distillery in Scotland. And as you can see, it still does retain some of that shape. So you've still got the sort of the bulbousy bits and the slightly tapering, narrowing rim, but not as narrow. So I use this if I'm going to have a mixer. I generally don't. I generally drink neat. But if I do have a mixer with my whiskey, this is often the glass I go for. Partially because I like the fact I can still capture some of those aromas. And it's also rounded, so it fits nicely in my hand. But also, it's got more space, so I can actually mix the mixer in there quite easily. Like I say, I don't often have a mixer, but I quite like this glass because it sort of retains some of traditional shape, but is still enables me to have sort of more of a mixer side in there. You could put ice in there if you wanted to. Again, you could fit it in. This is quite a fun one as well. So this is from the Lake District Distillery. Really, really nice distillery up in the Lake District in England. And as you can see, round again, fits really nicely in your hand, nice to use. Again, this, like the crystal one, actually has quite a bit of weight to it. So it has that heaviness which appeals to quite a lot of people. It's a bit wide on the opening for me. Like I said, I quite like the narrow opening. I like to have the aromas, but wonderful if you want to put some icing there. It's also quite fun to use because, I don't know if you can see this, but it's one of these ones that's it's like a non-fall. So it'll roll around and it won't tip over too far. It'll always kind of right itself. So that's always a bit fun. So yeah, that's quite a nice one to use. Now these next two, my final two, again are from distilleries. They're ones that I don't use that much. And as you can probably see there, so they're both got the straight sides. In fact, this one from Cardew, which is a Scottish distillery, flares out almost. This one is much more straight, this one from Jameson's. Yeah, I don't tend to use these. Again, similar reasons as I've said before. They're quite wide in the top compared to the bottom, which means you don't get to have those aromas gathering in the way that you do on some of the others. But again, you know, they're nice glasses. They're great to have a quick shot in if you want to. Depends what you're drinking, how you're drinking it. If you just want a small whiskey with a little bit of ice, well, that's probably quite perfect because it's a nice small glass. Not too heavy. You can get an ice cube in there and it won't look out of place as it would in perhaps a bigger glass where you might need a couple of ice cubes. So again, just different to use really. So yeah, so there's my whiskey collection of glasses, that is. And as you can see, I quite like it in one of these. I already have a whiskey here. You can roll it around, breathe in those aromas and just really enjoy it. So the choice is yours. There's no right or wrong glass to use. If I'm doing whiskey tastings, I will go for a Glencairn glass like this, just because I like people to be able to really get the aroma and the taste together. So, but yeah, whatever you have, then use it. All right then, okay, well, so yeah, so that's it for now, and I will see you again next week. Again, remember, hit that subscribe button, totally free to subscribe, and then you'll be able to find my channel really easily, which is obviously really good. So yeah, take care, and I'll see you next week. Bye.